been collecting records a long time. I mean, so I first started buying records, probably going with my mom, Nanny, really boring Target, and buying like Elton John's greatest hits or singles like Wild Cherry, Play That Funky Music, Bay City Rollers, Saturday Night, SATURDAY. When I really became a collector was when we moved to Alabama, when my father was in the Army, and I really hated Alabama a lot. I mean, I was already kind of really loved music and was really into it, but I wasn't buying a lot of records. And then we moved to Alabama, which I hated. I think I already said that. And because he was in the Army, we could go to the base PX, which is kind of the store on the Army base, and they had records for really cheap, like $2 and $3 a record. And so every week I started buying records. So right here is rock and roll, alphabetical, pub rock. Not that there's a special section for pub rock. Yep, rock's back here. And I started buying Cream magazine there. Reading has always been a way for me to get into music. Like, I've always read about bands and found out about bands that way. And Cream at that time was a really cool magazine. Like, Lester Bangs is kind of the big name, and American Rock Critics and kind of Wild Men of Rock and Roll. And he was writing for Cream at that point. So there were all these great people writing, and there was just this whole foreign world when I was in this place that I didn't want to be. It was great. So my ear always went for 60s psychedelic stuff, always sounded great to me, and I still love psychedelic music. Lenny Kaye, who was the guitarist for Patti Smith, made this compilation in the mid-70s called Nuggets. Nuggets was the first kind of 60s comp, psychedelic comp, and then there are a million since then, and so we've got these like Pebbles highs mid-60s, and before Pebbles, there was the Pebbles. Yeah, we have about 5,000 records of that. This is cool. This is all New Zealand bands from the 60s. I forget, it's something Wire. This isn't the original Nuggets. This is a later one that Rhino did. And the main one is not here for some reason. This New Rose is a great French label, especially in the 80s, that did a lot of like Australian punk, Tav Falco, Alex Chilton, Divine Horseman, a million good bands on that. Getting a little bit older, having a little bit more mobility, like everybody, you know, taking the bus or whatever, or someone gets a driver's license, and punk rock started to happen at the same time, and that's when American hardcore happened, which was really great for me because that was like really, you know, it was very political music, it was very anti-establishment, it was all young people. Young people like me, definitely some aggro male stuff going on too, but you'd have punk rock shows in the rec centers in parks in South Minneapolis, and it would be people my age just, you know, connecting through like these DIY groups like Better Youth Organization, BYO, and bringing bands in, these touring punk bands, and it was just great fun, and people slam dancing, and just great energy, and super positive culture. So I went off to Grinnell in Iowa, which is in this small town, like 8,000 people, and because you've got this college campus there and kids, it draws kids from New York City, Chicago, big cities all over the country, so the college really makes a point of bringing music and culture, arts, movies there for you. So when I was a freshman, I got on this concerts committee working with this guy, Fred Klatz, who was kind of a prodigy. I told him there's this Minneapolis band that I thought was the greatest band in the whole world, The Replacements. So he ended up bringing The Replacements down, leading to one of their more infamous shows in which they never finished a song, you know, and ended up smashing a guitar, which now we have hanging in the back hallway. But it's kind of weird because they were just, you know, they were a great band, they were a fun live band, but then at some point they became this national obsession, and then it's like, it's a disconnect. So. Minneapolis, we had these amazing record stores. We had what some people said at the time was the best record store in the world. However, you can determine something like that. Like guys at REM loved it. Guys from Replacements and Husker Du hung out there. Orfolk Jokopus. It was just a very cool record store. And I would take the bus there, you know, when I was in high school before I had a driver's license or something. And so going to these cool record stores with these hip clerks and trying to figure out what's interesting and buying things like one record. Maybe I'll show you later that I've talked to you endlessly about Orange Juice. It's just kind of this odd cover, you know, with this great yellow font and two dolphins jumping in opposite directions on the cover. And it was just like, what is this record is? And it was cheap because, like, at different times, based on the exchange rate, sometimes import records would be cheaper than domestic records, and at this time it was. And I got home and I listened to it and I was like, what is this? You know, because it's like, you know, it's kind of literate, wordplay, jangly, very kind of Birds influenced, Velvet Underground influenced sound. So it like didn't make any sense to me, but then listened to it, and then, you know, eventually became, you know, one of my all-time favorite records. So before the internet, there were all sorts of, you'd order, you know, get like mail and it would have a list of records. Sometimes it was auctions and you'd send in bids and things. But Parasol Records out of Urbana, Illinois, like every week they sent something. It was like indie stuff, and they were really great and tasteful. So I've got not all those. And then K Records out of Olympia, Washington did great catalogs for their stuff. They had the International Pop Underground, and just mail order before the internet, and it was a fun way to collect records. You know, streaming music is great as far as kind of dipping your toe in, sampling stuff, listening to all the music that's coming out. And since I already have way too much music, not buying absolutely everything, although I still sort of tend to do that. But records are great because it just focuses you more on what you're doing. It's like the side of an LP is, you know, 18 minutes, 20 minutes, 23 minutes long. You put the record on, clean the record, bring it up to speed, drop the needle, sit down, hopefully focus and listen on it, and you can still be distracted just like you can be with digital formats and earbuds or whatever. But it's the physical processing engagement of it, having the object with the art, tangible art that you can hold in your hand, liner notes, and even the imperfection of it, you know, the crackling of it and everything kind of keeps you in the moment, I think, a little bit more, whereas I can be listening to an album streaming and 20 minutes will go by and I'll be like, I'm not sure that I just heard anything that just played. You know, I'm focused on whatever else is going on. With the record, at the very least, I have to get up in 15 minutes or whatever and turn the record over, do something like that. And if I'm playing a single, then it's even more. It's like every 3 minutes you're up. So it's kind of a physical, like, back and forth to the turntable, sit down in front of the speakers, back over, thing like that. So still going to the same venues, still going to the entry, still going to, although a lot of the venues over the years have gone by the by. So since First Avenue owns everything in town now. One thing that changes as you go older is just your friends. It's harder to get maybe your friends to go out to shows. Some people just decide they don't like live music anymore, which is kind of sad. But then you just find the friends that still want to go and still are into finding new music. Or you have kids, and then your kids are into, right?